Welcome back for more Harness Players podcast coverage. What does that mean for you? Well, if you clicked onto this video for one, this is not Mr. Beast Goes on Island Adventures, or it's also not Babbing with Bingish Cooks One Piece Treats. This is about harness racing and harness racing betting, or it could just be about gambling if that's what you're into. Because, Mike, we know many people who like betting have no reason to not like betting on horse racing. We just have to figure out how to convince them that this is a fun thing to bet. It's way more fun than betting on Team A wins by 5 points. Come on.
Way more fun for us. I know that. And certainly you get, a result in 2 minutes. You certainly don't get a result in 2 minutes when you're watching a basketball game. You don't have to worry about the 18-year-old popping the free throw to cover the spread. So, but we have different dynamics and certainly different variables going on in harness racing. It's this past weekend at Yonkers, it was this past Monday. The races were very competitive. There was quite the downpour in the middle of the card. Certainly, if you watch the podcast, you probably went broke, personally. I mean, we call them like we see them, and this past week was brutal. It was a bloodbath. I got crushed. We'll be better this week.
Let's put the caveat. You got crushed. I did okay.
Your best bet did win, but
got hammered.
$4.
Yeah, the horse got as hammered as the rain did on the track. This video, of course, we're talking about more MGM Borgata Series at Yonkers Raceway. Last week, leg number 1. This week, leg number 2. Last week being the first leg, is partially why the payoffs were so grand. We saw 20-1 shots win, another 18-1 shot one going gate to wire. It was an opening leg. I didn't Verdun first and foremost. I did not anticipate Verdun to go the race that he did in the first division. There was just surprise after surprise. It was a wet track, and yet the speed couldn't carry. The closers did excellently on the whole card. So there's a lot of information for us to go through. We had some informative trips for at least some of these horses as we move into the second leg. We don't have them back-to-back this week, though. For Yonkers Raceway, Monday, April 7th is when these divisions go to post for the second preliminary of the MGM Borgata Series. We start with race number 2, which is the first race of the second preliminary for the Borgata. So maybe this is why people bet sports, is there aren't all these other numbers getting thrown out at them. They're just looking at wins above replacement, RBI over ABH, or God knows what other stats that they think are much easier to understand than reading a past performance. I should stop. We love you, sports bettors, but
you are rambling.
I do also love rambling, but this game has always been more interesting to me. This first leg is tough, though. 7 horses going postward, Mike. You were surprised. I imagine you were surprised by It's a Me Mario bursting through a 9-1. He got second, though, to a horse who I said had a chance in that race, Mosdale Ben, because he was winning coming into that race for, I believe, Peter Tritton, the trainer. Shane Tritton trains this guy who's coming in off the runner-up effort. Do we really weight him as the 7-5 favorite, though? Because it seems like he's just the chalk because he has the most sparkly line in the race.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with his morning line here. I thought he got an excellent drive there. Really, he took over at the absolute right time, got separation, just got tracked down by a very sharp horse, so has yet to lose this year. So yeah, should he be low in the morning line? I think he should, considering a lot of the other ones are coming off pretty dull efforts. Act Fast, he got the front. He was bet like he was going to be good, and he did not race very well. He he stopped on the turn. So some of the others really struggled. I don't know if it was the track, maybe just the fact that they were up in competition. I'm going to try Hemsworth in here because I like his class. I like the fact that he passed a couple horses last time. You get Zeron, you get an inside post. He's got to be better than he was. And I do think he's going to be much more forward in this race. I'm not sure what Act Fast is going to do. I'm not sure. I think Hungry Angel Boy will go early, but It's Me Mario, he's going to need the trip out to win this race. I don't know that he can get a better drive or a better trip than he did last time. And you're going to have to eat a short price. So I'm looking for something, an alternative. I'm going to do Hemsworth here.
I'm not opposed to that. I especially find appealing with Hemsworth, who he was keeping company with inside that race. You know, he was best of the rest behind For Once in My Life, Coach's Corner. If you go and watch that replay, those two peeled so far clear of the competition. And Hemsworth with the outside draw was forced to take back. And so that's a textbook Xeron methodical drive of I'm here, the better horses are all the way up there. I can't really expend that much to do better than where I am right now. And so since he has a better draw here today, I'm in agreement with you. We probably could see more from him because especially last year, this Baco trainee was really finding his stride against stakes types inside of this series. The 7-2 morning line, I think, is hopeful. It's possible, but everyone's also familiar with this horse from last year too. So it's tough to tell if he is going to take money or not. Act Fast has put a note for me on all the Burke starters this week because I don't know if you also noticed, Mike, a decent amount of them really had nothing. So it's sometimes, you know, if
maybe there's
sometimes
some sickness, something going on.
Like there could be a barn sickness going on. It could just be big coincidence, but I'll be curious how all of the Burke horses rebound from that opening division. It could have just been the track too. They could have just not liked the conditions. Though I feel like a lot of the horses in the Burke stable with the class that they have and so on and so forth, they probably should have had a little bit more than they were showing inside of these races. I don't know that It's a Me Mario though needs a perfect trip again. I think the only perfect thing that's set up for him was the first quarter being that wicked, 26 and change. That can take a sting out of even a really good horse, depending on how hard they have to push out. And then as the tempo slowed, that's when the perfect timing kicked in. But you look at that third quarter, this horse sprinted in 26 and change. And that could have been the dagger that helped a horse like Mosdale Ben continue closing ground. Because, I mean, sure, you can gain a cushion going that fast up the back stretch, but sometimes expending that hard loses you ground in the stretch too. So I'm curious how It's a Me Mario improves off of that effort. I think he reasonably tired off of that hard third quarter, but this is again all to defend a 7-5 morning line. If anything, to just say he's legitimate as a favorite. But I am curious if Hemsworth is going to be around the 7-2 price. That might be worth just a couple of bucks inside of this race, because otherwise Carabao is probably going to get bet way too hard because of the post switch. He's probably going to be even. Though if he's like 8-1, I could see him being a use in like the try or something like that, just because he might suck along and get a good trip. Hungry Angel Boy, I don't think is going to get a good trip. He's probably going to get the same trip he got last time, and that was nothing. Churchview Frankel at 20-1 seems like a huge red herring. That price seems way too high for a horse that was closing ground super hard to finish fourth behind Artie's Flash and Humble. Granted, it wasn't like the toughest division, but I feel like that horse is probably going to take more money. He's just a logical one to throw on underneath. But this is ultimately a fairly lightweight division, which is also why I feel like Hemsworth's back class has to stand out unless it turns into It's a Me Mario showing he can be a stakes type. Because I know the Trittons have been high on this guy for a little while, and this is finally his foray into the Grand Circuit. Second division of the Borgata is race number 4. So we go from race 2 to race 4, skipped race 3. You can bet race 3 if you want. This is 7 horses going postward inside of this division. Reasonable morning line favorite to the inside. I feel like Mike Hunnan, the last dollar. He had that race locked down until the chance somehow came lunging.
Yeah, he got a perfect trip, a perfect drive. Was inside the favorite and then was able to tip out at the right time. And there was a blanket finish there in that. And that was the first division, the first race of the Borgata series last week. I think he's going to be overbet here. I do think that, Chase H. Hanover should be on the front and controlling the race again. They're probably 1-2 around the racetrack again, depending on, what sort of trip that Ammo decides to go. He flashed speed last time and just came to a walk like the other Burke horses did in this series. Himself might show up in here after a 6 scratch. He's shown speed in the past. Please let me know, has back class. He's, certainly able to show speed, did not last time, but like you mentioned, was in probably one of the tougher divisions. That horse has plenty of class. Also, I do think that the 3 and the 1 are 1-2 around the track again. I would probably bet Chase H to pull through and win this time. But, we'll see what happens here. Depends on what sort of outside pressure he gets. I don't know what Ammo's going to do. He might fire off again, and that would change it totally. Beyond that, it's a pretty good race. But I do think that the top of the market is where my money would be.
It does have the potential to shape fairly obviously. I think the main difference will be in the betting. The shoe will be on the other hoof, because last time Chase H was 9-5, Hutton the last dollar 7-2. That could flip. And if it does, I understand the appeal of Chase H Hanover. Even like going to the gate, I saw he was 9-5, which we knew was possible because of his speed and the potential he could carry that forward, so on and so forth. But even if he was at 9-5, that was not value inside of that race, because this horse also does have a tendency in that last 16th of a mile to really need the line. And so any horse behind him that has some type of energy to offer is probably much more threatening than it would be to other pace setters. But, if we get a dry track this time around, maybe Chase H is able to go around the track a little better, maybe have a bit more stamina down to the finish. But this is again chalk to chalk. What short price do you want? It's tough to really take many of the others inside here. My Ultimate Byron may be in too tough, though. I mean, he could be an interesting one to try and get onto exotics if you really don't like any of the others, because Please Let Me Know has to make a big bounce back off of that race. This horse has had lots of talent, but it seems like a lot of issues to match it, and Alexander's really had to nurse him through his whole career. So that's probably just indicative of this horse being quirky. Maybe he puts it together second time out, but the barn always takes play. They didn't take play last time, which could have been a signal. But then himself off the 6 scratch, tough to take. Ammo, we don't know how the Burke horses are doing. Stallball might be live on the outside. He always somehow gets into the mix with these down under horses. Rock and Roll Runa last year was one of the big ones that broke through. Blazing Home was at least closing ground. Again, maybe it was because a bunch of the horses were tired from the third quarter sprint, and so this guy was able to just inch into the action late while everyone else was tired. But he's going to be a price. His last race was at least good. He's in form. The draw sucks, but all of that could mean if you settle on chalk 1, chalk 2, maybe that horse makes like the try interesting. No disagreement there. Yeah, perfect. I like that.
I figured we're moving on.
Race 7 is the third division. 50,000. All these are $50,000 purses. 8 horses this time inside of this race. Again, for once in my life, finds himself into a deep group. Right next to Why Not Now, who finished well to be third behind admitted long shot Binge on Yankee. I think that one was like 20-1. I think went gate to wire with Scott Zeron, if I remember right. Humble able to launch from the outermost draw in Division 1. New stable was purchased out of that race by William Hart, moving into the D. Domenico barn from the Scott Blackler stable, picks up Tim Tetrick. Admiral Hill gets a tough draw again. Mickey Shan's kind of interesting with Hunter Oaks popping up. Rock and Roll Runa, of course, on the outside. So for once in my life, the horse, this isn't like leading into something philosophical, makes sense to be favored here again. But Mike, is he up to the task against this deeper group?
I do think he will be up to the task. Just a quick reminder, pick 5, $1 minimum on race number 5. So that's a couple races before this. Starts with the Invitational, $20,000 guaranteed pull for that pick 5. I was nowhere close to the pick 5 last Monday, but maybe we can do a little better this week. As far as the 7th race, I do think for once in my life was exceptional last time, because that's a real horse that was chasing in Coach's Corner and really had no business, I think, holding that one off late, but did, and kicked 27-3 there, controlled the race, has the rail here. I would imagine that the strategy will be very similar. Now, what does Humble do? Getting a new barn, you get a new driver. The horse race, I thought pretty well from the outside post, but was sort of gifted the right trip in there and still couldn't finish it off while being 1-9. I hate stuff like that, but there's a lot of changes here, and I do think that it'd be hard to leave this one off tickets for me, despite as dominant as the one looked in leg number 1. I liked Admiral Hill last week, and he was just flat. Now, that was in the middle of an absolute deluge, so the weather had gotten very bad at that point. So maybe I could forgive that. The barn's going very well. You're going to get a price on this one now. He was even money last time. The other horses the 4 is going to take money. The 1's going to take money in here. I think the 2 could take a little money. Feel like I'm back, and I do think it could be a use for me. And then you mentioned the Hunter Oaks horse. Rock and Roll Runa shows up in here. It's a nice race. I would probably be heavy 1. I don't know what to do with the 4. I'd keep it on the board, but I probably would use Admiral Hill and Maltese just because I liked him so much last time. The weather was poor. He won 12 races last year. We'll give him another chance.
I wonder how hard Gingras will be able to leave with him, though, because Humble's going to go. For once in my life is going to go.
Yeah, that's okay. He could be off it. I'm fine with that. He can be off.
Okay. I mean, just from my experience watching him, a lot of his best efforts had come when he was close to the speed. And we had a big race at Oak Grove last year when Little Rocket Man actually showed up against Admiral Hill, and it was supposed to be like a big matchup between them. But it was like, are you familiar with that meme that pops up on the internet every now and again where it's nuclear bomb versus coughing baby? It kind of shaped up like that. Little Rocket Man just trounced Admiral Hill. He had a bad draw, and he couldn't get out of the gate. Like, he had a hard time trying to beat everyone to the first turn. And so I've always taken note of that race with this horse specifically, especially when there's speed to his inside, because he has a lot of muscle, and he can carry his speed real well. But if he doesn't get to the lead, he doesn't gain ground on the small tracks. It's really interesting. And so that's my one liability with him. Certainly he could be the nuclear bomb this time around versus the coughing baby, but that's for him to show inside of this race. I feel like for once in my life, it's his race to lose. I'm really curious what odds he's going to go inside of this race. I was somewhat surprised he got bet, but I think I was more disappointed he got bet because I wanted to seem really smart instead of it being 6-5 against Coach's Corner at 6-5.
I think he'll be a similar price. He'll be similar versus these because the 4's got to take money now.
Right. And so I'm thinking, if Humble is 5-2 inside of this race, that's not really value to me, even on the barn switch. 6-5 might actually still be appealing on for once in my life because the pylon post means he's going to have an easier time getting forward and getting into position, even though, the gate's slanted, so the outside horses can build speed and whatnot. The only horse I kind of worry about inside this race, though, is Mickey Shan because he scratched sick. Sometimes, you see a 6 scratch, and, if the trainer is cunning enough and they see what the weather is, that they might just, something might be up. And then the horse is just not showing up that day because you look at the starts prior, this is a textbook case of kind of what I had with Mosdale Ben. Win, you're not really showing any type of weakness. So now here is your test. Here's your class test to see, do you belong here? Do you not? The draw isn't necessarily ideal, but this horse seems like he belongs until proven otherwise. And against for once in my life, maybe he's an okay price. He's 5-1 in the morning line. He probably plays that inside of this race. Yeah, he will.
With the 4 in the race, he does. Absolutely. And the 5 will take money too.
Right, yeah, and so beyond the favorite, this is a puzzler of how to map your bets and such because there's not really a lot of long prices to spread with underneath, unless Birthday somehow steps up. Because he tends to be a lot better when he can sit close, but he had an inside draw and couldn't do anything last time. Rock and Roll Runa maybe wakes up at 20-1 in the morning line. It could be a race that plays super obvious. 8th race is the 4th division. I did that math very quickly inside of my head. 8 horses going postward. Once again, Mike, though, Coach's Corner not paying his dues to the post gods, and so they continue to punish him. Post 7 this time around, and worst of all, he has Desperate Man who gets the pylon post after parking first over and that not really being his forte.
Yeah, how about Coach's Corner? He just draws like crap all the time. I mean, draw ever. Raced exceptional last time, looked very good. Just couldn't catch the nice winner that you certainly liked last week. I'd imagine that they'll leave again. This is a nice race, though. I like Duncan back. I think that one could be used. Probably needed that race last time, and he was in there. He has a post edge over the 7 here. Tetrick's back. I would hope that he would get him more forward off the gate there. I'm sure Binge on Yankee's going to go again. Hella Blue, his trips are up close whenever he does, race well. And then Desperate Man, thought he was just okay last time. I mean, you're 1-2 in there. You're supposed to produce a better effort than he did. Now, maybe he needed the race, and that's very possible. So classy. I mean, $1.4 million. got the right post. This is going to be interesting early. Who goes where? What happens? Duncan has proven that he can do it from off the pace. I like him. I like Coach's Corner. Wish You Well was just okay last time, and he's just drawn terribly. I want no part of him. I would try to be Desperate Man in this race. I didn't like what I saw last time, and I do think he's going to be overbet again. So I would be heavy Duncan, heavy Coach's Corner.
Desperate Man, one of the few horses to have beaten Bulldog Hanover in his career, and very slowly,
Bulldog Hanover hat.
Very slowly, Bulldog Hanover is becoming a who is that? And then you go, oh God, right? It was him, because it feels that was like 3 years ago at this point. We haven't seen any of his progeny hit the track just yet. Some of them sold in the yearling sales last year. But this isn't a plug for Bulldog Hanover. He was a fast horse, but now he's not racing. He is at daddy duties, which if he's fast at, good for him. 9-5 though on Desperate Man at the inside. It's a situation where do you want to lean on what's obvious, or do you want to take a chance? And sometimes that is kind of how obviously this gambling game goes. But I think you land on the logical counterpunch in Duncan. Even though Coach's Corner is inside of this race, that's ultimately the question. You're going to get a better price on Duncan because of that. But I feel like we said that in another race, I forget who was fourth. Oh, Hemsworth was fourth inside of that race. He was best of the rest. Duncan similarly was best of the rest based on where he was. He was 7 lengths worse than Coach's Corner when that one had to face a tougher one, and for once in my life. So if the trip somehow shakes a bit more in the favor of Duncan, does the horse overpower Coach's Corner? Because it seems like Coach's Corner is just much better no matter what. And
I don't know. I thought Duncan needed like a clean line there. I just, after that bust back on the 24th, and, prior to that had been showing speed. I didn't mind that line, actually. It was encouraging for me. I think he's due for a breakout. He was better in the middle of the series last year. I do think they're going to try here, and they have a post edge over the 7. This is a good race, though. I mean, Binge on Yankee, 1-1, Hullabaloo's in there, moving inside, Desperate Man. This is one of the more competitive divisions. I would be spready in multis. I know that.
If somehow Coach's Corner isn't the favorite, though, he's the bet.
Desperate Man will be the favorite from the rail, 100%.
Then Coach's Corner might actually be quite appealing inside of that division. Final division, then, race number 9. Some have said it's the feature on the card. It's the featured division. I think for once in my life is in the deepest division.
You just like that horse.
No, it's not that I just like that horse. It's that legitimately Humble, I think, with the post switch makes that race a lot more interesting. Admiral Hill, I know how good that horse is. Why Not Now is supposed to be really good. We don't know what Mickey Shan, there are 5 different horses that have a shot against him versus last time out. For once in my life, only at Coach's Corner. 3
winners from leg 1 last week in this last division. So hard to knock that as far as depth.
Sure. Mosdale Ben, kind of curious how he's going to step forward from here. Artie's Flash, I don't really write into the race from all the way out there. I don't know how he's going to get into the action unless Bartlett hauls him off the wings, which he very well could. But then Verdun, sometimes you see horses go those big races like he did. Fired home in that back half of 55-4. His personal back half then is almost 53-4. 54 flat, I think, is what he came that race back in on a wet track. Sometimes they don't repeat that, but I mean, you look down his page, he's consistently flying home that way. So it might not be a fluke. He has the pylon draw this time around. Maybe that's better for him.
I mean, he's going to be in the same spot as last time. He's going to be from off of it. I think Charlie will be better also. First up, wasn't his gig last time. He's got to be forward again. He could control this race. There's a lot of them that want to sit back here. I'd imagine that Jordan Stratton will go forward with Mosdale Ben now, given the post, given the pace dynamics here with some of the horses inside that don't show a lot of speed. They could go 1-2. Verdun's going to sit. He's not going to leave out of there. I mean, it's Pat LaChance. He raced very well last time. I'm not going to go against Charlie in this race. I think you'll get an okay price. He's going to be forward. He just needs a better trip. He's going to call on his class. We'll see what Mosdale Ben is. If he can win this race here, he could be one of the favorites for the series overall because, I mean, he has yet to lose this year. So he could be something. He's going to have to prove it to me, though. So, of course, I'm going to go Charlie. Well, I would use the 6, though, in Maltese, and it would just be those 2 for me.
Just knowing how sharp of a closer Verdun is, it does kind of make the logic of this race fall to who has the speed to potentially steal the race. Like, even though Verdun was able to come home 54 flat last time, the leader's able to carve a sensible enough tempo, they can potentially thwart whatever type of push that horse offers at the end. Charlie, I think with this draw, he does go forward. He has to go forward. Dave has to send him. And the question there then is, will Charlie be able to hold off Bongiorno to the outside? Because Typhoon Banner, I imagine, is going to want to go forward as well. Bartlett, I feel like if he goes fast enough, that could force Stratton back. And so Mosdale Ben may again have to come from off the speed. But from there, how that race shapes is if Charlie can somehow put them all behind him, Dave can probably carve a really good mile for this guy. And the horse is gutsy enough that he might benefit from that breather or two to then have enough to hold off wherever LeChance is launching from late. But it's tricky. It's really tricky. Like, I understand. I understand why some people think that this is the feature because you have the 3 winners. They have a lot to prove. In all honesty, Verdun has to prove that he can replicate that close. Mosdale Ben has to prove that without a massive third quarter sprint, he can still claw horses in and win. Artie's Flash has to prove that he can do something from all the way out there, because I don't believe he can. And so Charlie May is he's kind of a default horse because of the class, and maybe because he was 4th off the first over push, somewhat flat, you might say. He might be a better price inside of this race. It's tough to tell, though, because, again, we all know who Charlie May is. He always takes, well, I shouldn't say he always takes money, because you've had him every time he hasn't. So those do exist. But there are a lot of ways you can go. And plus, who knows what Tetrick does? Do we think Tetrick just takes back with Janelle Granny with this post draw, knowing that Charlie May might not be the strongest speed to the inside with a stiff closer to the pylons? Tetrick could want to leave too. It could be an interesting first turn.
These races this week are very competitive. I'm not sure that you're going to get the prices you got last week, but they are going to be very fun to watch. It was very enjoyable watching those races and this, Borgata series get going last week. So get involved in this pick 5 at Yonkers. I know all the Borgata races aren't there, but it's going to be very entertaining racing. Hopefully the weather's much better than last week, but definitely tune in Monday for these races, because they're not only a lot of fun, these are top horses that are going at each other every week for big money. Everybody's trying here. So this is, if you're interested in harness racing, it's certainly, I think, must-see TV.
I'm trying to check what the weather is supposed to be, but the Weather Channel app is saying there is no such place as Yonkers, New York. They clearly are misinformed over there at IBM, when all I want to see is there a possibility that we have a fast track or not? Because that certainly is going to influence a lot of the racing. And on top of that, going to give us more notes, as we have 5 total preliminaries to look at through this series. The finals after the Kentucky Derby. Or is it the Friday before the Kentucky Derby? I always forget.
No, it's the 9th.
The 9th. So that's the Monday is when the Borgata goes.
The Monday after, the week after the Derby. So
right. That also,
it's the Saturday after the Derby, I'm pretty sure. So
okay. So that is when the Borgata goes post. It's also one of the first graded stakes in harness racing, because that's a new thing that's happening in 2025. I'm also hoping that Mike has found the weather report from at least our point of view in Thursday recording this. Here we go. Now I can see it. So Monday's weather, rain, but at night, rain. Okay, so
AM showers, it says 58%.
And nighttime showers too, potentially. So could see some potential replications of how trips unfolded last week. Could see different things, because no one wet track plays the same, no matter where you are. But wherever you are, you should be listening and watching to the Harness Players podcast. That does it for our look at leg 2 of the Borgata series. So many more weeks of this to come, Mike. And there's blue chip matchmakers on Friday too. I wanted to make note also of how leg 1 went. It was the all Borgata pick 5. Yonkers, of course, has that $1 pick 5 minimum. Should be appealing to horse players. And the reason is in the pudding. You can buy a lot of pudding with $18,000, which is what the pick 5 paid last Monday with all those bombs coming in.
Congrats if you got it, because I could never have had it.
And it was only like a $23,000 pool. So that's potentially one ticket taking home all that cheese. But we'll be back with more Borgata action. That'll be next Monday, April the 14th. Of course, stay tuned on the In the Money Media page, not just for harness racing coverage, but of course, massive Kentucky Derby preps coming up. We're in April already, so that means the first Saturday in May is logically 1 month away. And so every horse player has their eyes on that. And of course, the week after, you want to have your eyes on Borgata action and a swath of stakes to come in 2025. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. If you're not subscribed, that's honestly your fault, because it's one of the easiest things you could possibly do on planet Earth. You can like the video, and you don't have to like the video. Everyone says you should like the video, and like, because it helps you in the algorithms. And like, while it's nice, it's like when the barista turns the tablet over to you, and it's like, you want to give me a tip? I just threw an egg bite in a microwave for you. You want to give me 10%?
Make some comments. That would help. That would help the algorithm. If you want
you could certainly
on his hair or wear the suit or do something.
Yeah, we could turn the comments section into a bloodbath specifically for me, if that so is what everyone wants to do. I can withstand it. You know, I'm a horse racing tout. I have the thickest skin that doctors know, and Mike knows that because he is a doctor and also a tout, so he can check himself. Okay, that's it. Bye bye.